I have to be careful about my...
No problem. Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with Daniel Mangena. Today is Thursday, February the 13th, 2020. It's 4 p.m. New York time. And wherever you are in the world, thanks for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. Unfortunately, Alex still isn't with us today. She's actually dealing with some medical issues, so we'll be putting out some positive vibes for her. But Daniel and I are going to struggle on here because we have a really good project to struggle with. We're talking about his book, Stepping Beyond Intention, and we got started on it last week. And this week, I think we're going to get a little more in-depth with it. And maybe we can even tie in concepts about how to apply it for, say, healing yourself or helping to heal somebody else. So let's see how it goes. So first of all, Daniel, how you doing? How's it going?
I'm very good, but I just realized the yellow square was around me as I danced earlier. So I may have, for the first time ever, I may not have got away with my secret dancing, my dancing. We'll see how.
Yeah, well, you can always count on Zoom to surprise you. That's one thing I've learned in the past year of learning with it. That just when you think you've got it figured out, nope, something else pops in there. So there you go.
Well, I'm feeling really good today. I did a 4-day masterclass, a very impromptu masterclass in my Facebook group this week, and we wrapped that today. That was a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to hearing reports of how people got on with it.
Ah, yeah, very good. All right. Well, you'll have to also share some of those with ours so that we can find out definitely just how it went, you know?
Yeah, so, like I said, the last thing I did in the group was a 5-day challenge in October, I think. Where we went off. I set them off to manifest $10, and like I said in the last show, we had some really, really good results before we'd even set the intention on the Friday. The results were flying in, so I'm very excited to see how we get on this week.
It's fun when you can set a relatively simple task like that and people jump on board and you get a real good sense of just how many people are diving in and doing this stuff on a daily basis.
Yeah, really great. Like I said, the average was between 100 and 1,000, but we had, I think the registered win was £27,000 manifested that.
Wow. Yeah. Really, really remarkable. Fantastic.
Completely out of the blue, because the whole point with the money game is you're not allowed to do anything for the money to come in. It doesn't count unless it came to you without you doing anything.
So this is non-action related. This is just pure attraction. You sat back on your couch pretty much.
Yes, but we do the work. We're doing practices, but we're doing all inner game practices. No outer work at all to manifest.
Yeah, that's the more challenging way to do it for sure. And if you can put in the time and effort to do that, it's a great way to build up belief, to build up confidence, self-confidence in yourself and in the process that, this really works. I just have to keep applying myself every single day.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So last week you gave us kind of an overview of your book, Stepping Beyond Intentions, and told a couple stories about it. And this week I figured we could kind of dive more into the meat and potatoes of it and discuss it in more detail. So I'm jumping to, I'm looking at a Kindle version, so I don't know what page this is in the book. This is the page that shows up for me, right? But I'm looking at the section called the intention setting process. And this is where you start setting up your 4-step process. So talk about the intention setting process a little bit and how does this become the springboard for the rest of it?
Well, thank you for that. So when people set intentions, normally they're just expressing something that they want. They're expressing a want. And I separate want from desire because I believe desire to be something very different. I follow the model of more of the Wallace Wattles stroke Napoleon Hill definition of desire, that, it's not some passive thing. It's a real fire, really directed fire.
Okay.
So people normally just like, I really want to be rich, or I really want to be healthy. I really want to be not alone on Valentine's Day. I've had people, send me messages on that this week. I really don't want to be alone on Valentine's Day. How can I manifest the perfect partner before Valentine's Day? Well, that's just a want. That's not a desire. So what we do with the build intention based process of intention setting is we take it a few steps back and a little bit in reverse, because we start not with the want or the desire, but we start with the emotional experience that you will have at the end of the day. So once all is said and done, once you've manifested your intention, once you've achieved your outcome, how will you feel? So what we essentially do is we set up a cognitive connection between a specific emotional state and tie that to the outcome. We tie the outcome to a specific emotional state. And then we dictate, we scribe what that is and construct an intention that elicits that state. So rather than, I really want to be rich, that would be really cool, or I really want a Ferrari, that would be really nice. I'd definitely have a girlfriend if I had a Ferrari. It's more, even if you want a Ferrari, it's more, when I think of the version of me that has a Ferrari, how does that person feel? Because one thing I say in the book as well, there's no good or bad intentions. There's no right or wrong intentions. There are some that are agreeable and some that are disagreeable. There's some that serve and some that don't. There are some that are uplifting and some that aren't. And that's all what it is in the moment, right? The law of relativity says it's only, things just are. It's when we attach a story to them that that changes. And so what we do is we say, okay, my emotional state will be this. Okay, can I feel it now? Yes. Well, can I create a written statement that elicits that feeling within me and connects me to this experience? One, ideally, that I can remember. One that's not so convoluted that I need a dictionary to understand all the terms, but one that really just brings up the emotion. Because all the words are is a trigger for the emotional state. And one of the first things I do in the book is I get people to imagine themselves eating their favorite food and teleport their consciousness to a space where they're in the process of enjoying their favorite food and recognizing that the emotional experience of having their favorite food triggers their body to respond just as if they were eating that food now without the need to eat the food. It's the Pavlov's dog. Mm-hmm. So we essentially use a version of that, a variant of that with our intention setting, because then once we set our frequency, which is just we experience in the first point is our emotional state, then we can get the flow funnel going in our direction, in our favor. So how will I feel at the end of the day? And then creating a statement that elicits that emotional state now.
Which is very reminiscent of the Neville Goddard approach, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, creating what Cindy Chavez and I call the vignette. His little scenes where he says, okay, you want to attract being a franchise owner, you imagine yourself shaking hands with the person who's giving you the franchise or whatever it might be.
Exactly. Yeah. And one thing we do, so I use, when I'm working with people, I use visualization to get them to actually meet a version of themselves from the future that's had the experience, and then ask them, how do you feel? And take the emotional state back into the now. That's how we intend to do it. But really all it is, and there is no right or wrong way to do this, it's just what works for you. Some people, it'll be the vignette. Some people, it'll be a visualization. Some people, it'll be writing a poem. Some people, it will be sitting in the bath and just imagining the experience. It's whatever works for you. What's important is that you create a clear cognitive connection between the outcome and a set of emotions, no more than 3 or 4. You don't really need more than that. Just a couple of emotions, the top few that you can connect to in that experience.
Yep, that's a big deal. That's good. So then after you've laid that out, I mean, it's basically a 4-step process you describe for going beyond intention. And well, you also define what it means to go beyond intention, which is a good idea, because somebody who hears that title, including myself, for the first time says, what the heck is he talking about?
So beyond intention, as the word suggests, the name suggests, it's about getting beyond the need to keep setting these intentions, right? So the reason why I have to go to the future, connect cognitively to an experience to bring it back to the now, is because my current trajectory is not taking me in the direction of something that I want. So I have to disrupt my current flow and pull it consciously into another track that aligns with what I want to experience. But if I reset my autopilot so that it's consistently doing that anyway and creating experiences that I've chosen that are aligned with what I want, then I'm no longer needing to set intentions all the time. I'm now beyond the need to set intentions, which is what the whole purpose of this level of my work is, to get you beyond the need to keep setting intentions, because I don't have to disrupt something that's going well. I don't have to stop a song that's being played correctly. You know, I don't have to stop my child talking. If they're talking and being a good child, I can leave them to enjoy and carry on doing things. It's if they're misbehaving, then I have to stop. Okay, guys, let's do this. It very much depends on them being in flow to being well behaved, and this behavior is aligned with them being a very good human. It's the same way with my intentions. If my subconscious mind is generating blueprints, going out and shooting out experiences and calling in experiences that serve me, then why would I interrupt it? I'll leave it to do what it's doing. Good on you guys. Carry on. So beyond intention is about setting the mind up so that's what it does.
Okay. All right. So now that we defined what beyond intention is, you go into a diagram and a 4-step process, accepting, clearing, gratitude, and listening. What's that all about?
Mm-hmm. So that's the process that I use we're talking about, where are we now? What year is it? 2020. We're talking about 12 years of refining a process to empower you to step into dominion over your choices. Because there's a couple of things that are going on with beyond intention under the surface, but there's two I want to call the listener's attention to. Number one is that an outcome comes because we're aligned to it. Mm-hmm. All right. So I speak about the flow funnel. I think it's chapter 4 on the paperback. It's from page 19, where I go through the diagram. And so we choose our intention, we get into the vibration of it, into the feeling of it, we step into mental rehearsal of it, and then we act in alignment to it. So that's the flow funnel that creates alignment. So everything that we're experiencing right now in our life is because, whether consciously or unconsciously, we've chosen it as what we're going to be. We're in the frequency of it without disruption. We believe it's possible, therefore we're able to mentally rehearse it, because everything we're experiencing has been mentally rehearsed first on some level. And then our action, the way we show up in our life, aligns with it. So there's an alignment that just allows it to happen. Mm-hmm. The second that we disrupt that alignment at any point, we come off of that track onto another track. It's the same way when we set an intention, we may do our rampage in the morning and really I feel good, I'm really in line with this feels great. But then I don't believe it's possible. And so I can't see it. And therefore my mind keeps playing images and playing mental movies of the opposite. I get up in the morning, I'm going to shift this cancer, I'm going to shift this gout, I'm going to shift this, whatever's going on, I'm going to have high energy today. And I really get ramped up, right? I do it. I have my meditation, or I pray, and I'm really feeling connected to God today. I'm really believing in it. And then I get into my day, and then the narrative that's happening in my subconscious mind, which is, yeah, but you've got cancer, mate. And that's what you've got. Yeah, but you're not really worthy of being healthy. And that's why you're unhealthy in the first place. Money, you're in lack, right? And our belief systems and our narratives play out. And that pulls us off. We're no longer on that life track.
No kidding.
Of what we set up with that vibration in the morning. We're now on a new life track. And when left unattended and we don't pull it back to the consciously chosen track, we end up in this disempowering space of what we don't want showing up in our life. And so alignment is number one. And number two, alignment is a result of choice. We choose our frequency, we choose our emotional state, we choose our mental inputs, which leads to a shift in our thought quality. We choose our actions and we choose our environment, which shifts that alignment too. And so alignment is how it works, but to get into alignment, we must choose on each of those levels. And the 4-step process of beyond intention gives you dominion over those choices, so that in the short term, we disrupt whatever pattern we're on and consciously bring ourselves into alignment with our intention. But then in the long term, we shift the autopilot so that it's creating outcomes that are in line with what we've consciously chosen, not based on our patterns, not based on our past, not based on our trauma, not based on, what was given to us by our parents, or even what came to us from another lifetime. Here and now, we are choosing, and that can happen on an automatic process. So beyond intention is how we create that alignment, how we choose the alignment on those different levels.
And what you're discussing there reminds me a lot of something that Cindy Chavez posted about yesterday, I believe it was. She told a little story about how she was, I don't remember, doing something, and all of a sudden found herself on a counterproductive thought that was basically going against something that she was trying to manifest in her life. I think it had to do with the fact that she has an injured wrist and she's healing the wrist. And then she started getting into a mindset of something like, oh, who am I to say that this wrist is ever going to heal? You know, that kind of thing. Essentially what you were just saying. And she had to actually consciously stop herself and say, no, I know this wrist is going to get better. I know it's going to get better really, really soon. And I'm feeling really great about it. So kind of like what you're talking about there. I'm not sure she went through the same process, but very much the same thing.
I mean, this is the thing. Truth just is, Mr. Walt. Truth just is. I'm not saying that I've created a new version of the wheel, but I've spent the last 2 decades looking at all the different variations of how wheels are made and created a very simple process to getting a wheel that works and works consistently and has been proven to work consistently. I've got countless now case studies, testimonials of people for whom this wheel has worked, and it's worked in my own life too. Is it the only way to make
no, of course not.
It's not. But what I say, it's all about finding a variant of the wheel that works for you. It may or may not be this, but I can guarantee that the components of this on some level are going to be in every single working wheel that you look at. And if that wheel does not include alignment on all levels, if this wheel does not loop in with infinite possibility, you may have limited results with the wheel, because those are eternal truths about, you know, what we need to experience if we're going to, as a collective agreement that we as humans have given into, which is a whole other conversation. But there are certain collective agreements that we as humans, enough of us have subscribed to make them a general reality. Can we break them? Yes. But why break a wheel just because you want another wheel? Why not just work with the wheels that are there, which is what...
it's an interesting idea. I mean, like you say, eternal truth is eternal truth, and there have been a lot of different ways that it's been expressed, and you found a really great way to express it. I'm drawing these arrows to other systems that I know that are very similar, just to say, wow, it's so cool. It's so similar to this other system. Exactly. And what you were just describing right there sounds very much like the Abraham Hicks 5th step, the 5-step method that they have. Their 5th step. It's basically where you have just manifested your next thing, and you stay on the excitement level, and you go to ask for the next thing, and you ask for the next thing, and you go for the next thing, and you're just in that place where, you know, it's one ask after another is just turning into yes.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are people that, you know, they'll do a morning rampage, and that is enough. They get such a weight, and I wish I could have, if I had my iPad, I could have even shown you the diagram of it. But, you know, they get such weight behind their emotional state that it just powers through the rest of the alignment and just shows up. And that's when we have miracles. Or they're so firm in their belief that it even informs their emotional state, because we're talking about a loop. Although in the book, I describe it as a flow downwards, really it's a primordial loop of everything happening at the same time. You know, it really step by step by step. I frame it that way so that we can get our head around and start, you know, consciously stepping into it. But really everything's happening at the same time. The belief, the emotion, and the act, the belief, the emotion, and the act, they're all happening and informing on each other. But sometimes the belief is so strong, the subconscious mind has been reset into such depth that it informs the emotional state, it bends reality to what we've consciously chosen, bends it to our will, and creates our outcome. So there's different ways to skin the cat. This is just a very clear way, especially for people that, I find that a lot of people that haven't really done any of this sort of stuff is really great.
Oh, yeah.
I had a testimonial from someone that came to my weekend the other day, and she did a really amazing testimonial. And I shared it in a couple of places. And, you know, she hadn't done much of this work. She's a really powerful speaker, really great with crafting stories, a master of her art. But in terms of this level of, you know, we're talking interdimensional play and energy work, and she'd never done any of this stuff before. But the way that it's framed allowed her to be able to digest it and step into it. So.
Interesting you should mention somebody whose one of their many strengths is storytelling, because I've often felt that one of the most wonderful and simultaneously one of the most difficult things in the world would be to be a good actor. Because if you're a good actor, you're a master storyteller, and you're really good at telling stories that come true regardless of how good the stories are or how much they work against your own interests. So, I mean, there are a lot of this is like the common thing. Anybody who's ever read the trades in the acting and entertainment profession can just see, obviously, these people, they just go out there and sometimes they create these really horrible lives, and they turn things around. They create these really amazing lives. I mean, you never find an actor who's just kind of living in the middle. It doesn't work that way.
Always on the extreme. Always on the extreme.
Just living, just in the suburbs on the little cul-de-sac. That's not what an actor does. The stories that they create are so vivid that their lives are they're almost bipolar. Not quite, but it seems like it, right?
Yeah, polarized. We could at least say polarized.
Polarized, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Probably a more politically correct way to say it. But seriously, I mean, I think there is great power in the ability to tell stories. And it occurred to me one time to kind of investigate where would I go if I was trying to learn to be a better storyteller? Where could I get lessons on that? And so I'm curious, is that part of what you teach? Do you teach people how to tell better stories?
No, I don't, unfortunately. But I do know some great people that do. My friend Chantel, she's one. If you want a written, I would check out 7 Basic Plots. I think it's 7 Basic Plots. Charles Booker, I think that's the book. The 7 Basic Plots. And what that actually shows is that all stories fit into 7 core types. Mm-hmm. And there's a model for how you can create a firm story off the back of that. And another one is the Epiphany Bridge concept, which is something that Russell Brunson talks about. That's a very, very clear guideline on how to tell stories.
Yeah, I do believe that it's probably like learning any other skill, because storytelling is a skill. Again, I'm going to point to Cindy just because I talked with her yesterday, so she's on my mind. But Cindy has pointed out that if you want to learn any skill, let's say you want to learn how to draw and you're the world's worst drawer, well, you just get a book, a book of empty pages, and first day you just try to draw something and it looks terrible and you never show it to anybody. And the next day you go to the second page, you try to draw something there, and it still looks terrible. And then you do it for 3 days, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You do it for 365 days and all of a sudden you can draw. The same thing I think is probably true with storytelling. Now, is it good to learn the bits and bytes of it from somebody who's an expert? Absolutely. Oh yeah, sure. If you're willing to go that far, you can't possibly fail by doing that. But but it also goes to prove that you don't have to go that route in order to become a better storyteller. You can just learn to tell a different story every day. And you don't even have to tell it to anybody else. That's the best part. You really don't.
I mean, but this is where the difference between being able to do something, getting something done, and getting something done in an optimal way, or getting something done in a way that that gets you results more expeditiously.
Yeah, that's true.
So I did a tweet about this actually today, is that, I personally have never heard of, met, or known anyone that's achieved anything purely by themselves. Anything of note has been achieved in collaboration with others or following the tutelage of others. Mm-hmm. And we could say the same thing with this, is that 365 days, you might be a decent drawer. You'll at least be able to get your stick man or have a decent haircut.
That's right.
But if you were to seek tutelage from someone, not necessarily, and this is me personally, I don't look for someone even necessarily that's done it. I look for someone who has trained others to do it successfully.
So you're looking for the person who has the ability to teach it, to explain it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Because some of the best soccer players, football soccer players, are the crappiest managers and coaches.
Well, that's true for all sports, by the way.
So being able to do a thing doesn't necessarily translate into being able to teach a thing, because teaching is a very fine art, I think, anyway, as a teacher myself.
I agree with you.
So I would say look for someone who has a track record of successfully teaching others to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And you'll probably get there a lot faster.
Yeah. Yep. I think there's also the component of enjoyment. No matter what it is that you're trying to learn, I believe that it's important to maintain contact with the enjoyment factor while you're learning it. Because if you get to the point where, for whatever reason, because you're making it a chore, because you're trying too hard, whatever, where it's no longer enjoyable, you just took away your own energy. You just took away the thing that keeps you going after it.
I think that everything in life should be enjoyed, and if you're not enjoying it, then sack it off.
I agree.
That's my thing.
I agree.
If it's robbing you of your joy, it's robbing you of your very reason for living. People ask me about purpose all the time. I had a call with someone the other day. It was about purpose. Like, screw this idea of some future place of the land of purpose. Pop that in. Instead, enjoy the ride of life. Get on as many different rides in the theme park as possible, and have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun and do no harm. But that's me.
That's good. I agree with you. I personally try to follow the rule. If it's something that I don't enjoy, I don't want to give it an ounce of attention. I want to give all my attention to the stuff that I like and that I enjoy. And the more that I've done that, the better my life has gotten.
The other thing is, there's a concept in a book by Roger Hamilton that talks about Clark Kent time and Superman time. So we're not saying, don't feed your children, or, don't have a shower, don't pay your taxes or whatnot. What we're saying is, if you've made the choice to take on a responsibility of any kind, then that needs to be honored, but find joy even in how you engage with it. Find a way to make it joyful, or find a way to engage in it that doesn't rob you of your joy in the very, very least. Some people say, well, it's all right for you to say, I've got to work my job if I'm going to feed my family, blah, blah, blah. There are ways to to balance it out, even to bring joy into other areas of your life, to balance out the fact that you do have responsibilities that perhaps aren't as enjoyable as other things. But make joy your directive, and recognize that there is generally space to find some joy in most things, even if it's just reducing the anti-joy that you experience as you go out and do it.
It's a great point. In fact, it's something that I have been directly involved with, that listeners know about, for the last few months, trying to do this programming project using a programming framework that I have no familiarity with and that I'm learning from scratch. A year after I basically retired from programming and said, I'm never going to do this again. I'm tired of it. I don't want to put up with this anymore. I'm so sick of it. And I never thought I'd come back to it. But here's the funny thing. By spending more time focused on what I liked, all of a sudden I found myself back on that project. I said, well, wait a minute, hold on here. You're saying to me that if I focus on what I like, I'm actually going to find something joyful about the things I didn't like before? And yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what happens.
Amazing.
It's truly a remarkable thing. In fact, I even had a really good breakthrough today in the work that I was doing. I've been trying for the longest time to figure out what's the best way, or what is any way that I can understand, to take my little app that I'm creating and have it connect to a remote server, which sounds like the easiest thing in the world. And the connecting part isn't too difficult. It's the interaction of data, sending data both directions, that it's amazingly difficult. But once I figured out how to do it, it's like, oh, well, geez, it's only about 10 lines of code. Why couldn't I figure that one out before?
Amazing.
Yeah. And I only got there because I've been feeling better. If I hadn't been doing the work on myself the last year or two of just trying to feel better about everything, not perfectly better, but incrementally better, your idea of the micro shifts. If I hadn't been working on that, I don't think I'd be able to do this right now. Literally, I think it would be too overwhelming, because right now it's actually close to overwhelming, but it's not quite. It's almost there.
It's like, I'm dancing here. But there's something to be said, though, for the fact that our ability to cognitively connect with opportunities and with answers is really diminished when we're not in a state of joy. When we're upset, when we're feeling funky, we genuinely end up cutting ourselves off from being able to see things. Yeah. The reticular activating system just shuts us down, putting anything in for our environment.
Oh, no kidding.
And we just end up saying, oh, versus, okay, I feel good about life. I'm elevated. I'm open to infinite possibilities. My field of focus is open. And there, my periphery right in the corner was the answer. It was there the whole time, but I was able to witness it when I was open, because I wasn't closed off by my
That's true. The other thing that I've discovered for myself is, the better that I feel, the better my level of concentration is. Got you. So in other words, as I feel better about my life, in general and about things that are going on in my life, and I'm seeing progress. I'm feeling like, yeah, I'm beginning to get this stuff. I'm really becoming a conscious creator who does have a high level success and so forth. As that happens, I come back to a project like this. One of the things I hated about programming was I could never. There were certain concepts I could never pick up. I would study. I would try as I possibly could, and I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't get it. But when I'm feeling better, now I find myself going in on a really microscopic level, saying, "Okay, here's this issue. I can't quite figure out what it is. How can I understand this issue? Can I look at it this way? Can I look at it this way?" I start drilling in really, really tight. And I find myself actually creating little test scenarios. Well, does this impact this? Does this impact this? Playing little games like that in a way that I could never have done when I wasn't enjoying it. Could never have done. It was not possible back then. And that was only a year ago. I mean, it feels like it was another age. But in fact, it was basically before I started focusing on getting myself into a better feeling place. So I guess I make that point just to say, getting into that better feeling place, focusing on what you prefer and doing it as regularly as you can. Yes, like you say, there are certain things you just have to deal with in life. That's just part of being alive. But it's amazing how many times in life, how many instances in life where we actually have a little built-in time free to decide what we're going to focus on, and we insist on continuing to focus on stuff we don't like. So it's like going to school. You have the required courses and you have the electives, and then you go into the electives and you just bitch and moan about them. They're electives. Come on.
You get the power to choose. You get the power to choose.
It's a very strong power, that power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's always happening, whether consciously or unconsciously. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay. So you've lined up the basic steps for Beyond Intention. What came next in the book? Can you remember?
I think it was owning where you are. I think if you flick through, that might be the next thing. Am I right?
Which is kind of what we were talking about, but talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the story I shared where I was in the wrong airport.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I think that was before this section, but yes, that was a great story, though. But but yeah, that was actually before this section.
Right then. So I think then it will be the flow funnel next. Then
I think it could be. Let's see, clearing the toolkit, tying it all together so you can move into your future as a recap. That's now we're on step 3. Which is the gratitude portion. I'll talk about gratitude. That's a biggie.
All right. So gratitude is really interesting. So before Beyond Intention, I had another model which I'd been using successfully for about how many years? I would say about 7 years. It's the very first model that came to me that I because my Asperger's needs structure. So it's the first model that I structured. And it was an amalgamation of what I'd learned from The Lazy Man's Way to Riches by Joe Carbo.
Oh my God, somebody else knows that book. Wow.
The Midas Method by one of my teachers and mentors, Stuart Goldsmith. That was the very first book that I read on wealth creation. I've been doing mindset stuff before, but in terms of specific wealth creation, this was the first book that sent me on that path. What else was in the mix there? Think and Grow Rich, those principles, and The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace D. Wattles. Those books mashed together became the first model, which was vision, purpose, faith, gratitude. So you create a very clear vision of your intention. You move with purpose. You act daily with purpose, the advancing man principle that Wallace D. Wattles talks about. You maintain complete and utter relentless faith that it's going to show up. So faith for me at that point was the absence of doubt. It's just a certainty, a deep level of certainty. And then express gratitude as things show up that you're in the way there, and be really, really deeply grateful. For me, gratitude was gratitude to the people, places, and things that supported, gratitude to the divine for that support, and also tithing, giving away to others. So for me, giving a portion away was one of the deepest expressions of gratitude. Sure. So that model was working successfully until it stopped working completely.
Really?
Yeah, it just stopped. Life went completely pants and tits up, which is the point. The point I actually accepted that it failed was when I was sitting and I said, looking for my way out, for my, the way to end it all. I'd reached that point where it's like, oh my God, I've dedicated myself fully. And complete blind faith had worked. I remember when I first moved into, I had a beautiful apartment that I lived in London by the river. And the hilarious thing is, to show you what this was like in action, at the time of deciding that I wanted to live in this £1 million apartment, I was sharing a 1-bedroom dingy flat on a housing estate in a part of London called Brixton. Now, Brixton now has been gentrified, so it looks lovely. But at the time, I mean, you're walking down the street and people are trying to sell you crack cocaine. This is the environment that I was in, all right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to live there. It was a very interesting story how I got there, and maybe in a book in the future I'll say, but my friend lived there. I just wanted somewhere to knuckle down, shut out the world and just focus. And so I said to him, he had 2 single beds in his little 1-bedroom flat. I said to him, look, I'll pay the rent if you let me stay here. And he was really confused as to why I wanted to live there. But I'm like, I'll pay your rent if you can just let me let me live in your little apartment. There's a whole other story. And I could see the apartment building from his house, from outside his house. I could see the apartment building that I wanted to live in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what would happen. I didn't believe that, and this sounds really weird now, and this is why I had this massive existential crisis that led me to just want to just blow my brains out. That I literally, whenever anybody asked me where I lived, I would say that's where I lived. I live in St. George's Wharf. That's where I live. Yeah, I've got a 2-bedroom, floor-to-ceiling windows. I see the river. Yeah, that's where I live. And I'd look at it every day, and I'd only talk in terms of living there. I would go on the subway. It was like not too far from where we were. It's like a couple of stops. I'd go there and I'd walk around very regularly, and I'd go to the supermarket in the complex, and this is where I live. Yep, this is where I live. Complete absence of doubt. And within about 4 months, I was living there.
Very cool.
And this is how I ran my life.
Mm-hmm.
Almost lying to myself about my situation, but future pacing myself into an experience. And that was happening consistently. Mm-hmm. I would just do that with everything. Yep, this is what I do. Yep, I'm a millionaire now. I was declaring and discussing myself as being a millionaire months before I'd made my first million.
Really?
Yes. And then the opportunity came out. So that was the clear vision, moving with purpose, complete faith, and then gratitude as things showed up. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And that kept working. But then what happened was, when the disconnect happened, and I've actually isolated it to the one conversation that shook my faith and threw me completely off, then all of a sudden, you're not calling in something, you're lying about something that you're not. The difference between a genius and a madman is the results. And I got caught in this little disconnect space where there was no result to back up the words. And then all of a sudden, you're not a visionary, you're not a genius who manifests, you're a liar who's failed. And that's where I'd found myself. And over the next decade of exploration, I actually unpacked that, because it took me a long time to understand what had gone wrong, because there was nothing wrong with the system, it worked. And the more I studied, I was getting it right. I was doing it right, but something hadn't worked. And I believe that creation of our realities can be an exact science. It doesn't have to be, the coins of fate. It can be an exact science. And I became very obsessed with finding that missing piece. And it's actually what allowed me to get so caught up with something that I forgot that I wanted to kill myself. I got so obsessed with answering this question that I ended up losing sight of what I was trying to do before. What it was is that gratitude comes before the result. And that missing piece, that one, and I actually had it before I really had it.
What do you mean?
So I had it in the process, and over a couple of year period, I was like, yeah, gratitude, yeah, gratitude for what I have right now, gratitude. But it was before, so I was being grateful before, but there was one peace. And this is one of the reasons why I'll be forever grateful to my teacher, Dr. Joe Dispenza, because I was sitting in a room, my very first one of his live events, and he said the words that gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. Gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership. And as he said that, hundreds of other books and hours spent in being taught and mentored and experienced exploded into an understanding. Yeah. I can be grateful for it now because it's already here. I'm not connecting to something in the future that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
I'm accepting the availability of that outcome here in the now. And therefore, I can be grateful fully in the now for an experience that's just waiting for me to line up to it.
And that's a skill, by the way. That's a real skill that you developed there. And it's a skill that is not to be overlooked, because I agree with you. I think that's the core of the difference between success and failure. The difference between you really do believe that this thing that you're trying to attract really is yours, and not being so sure about
it. Not being so sure about it. And that's where faith can come in. And that's where faith came back into the conversation. Because for me, faith is just a certainty, whether for an agreeable outcome or for a disagreeable outcome. Fear is faith. It's just faith in an outcome that you don't want.
Yeah.
Anxiety is faith. If you have anxiety, then you've got a great level of certainty, great faith. It's just in an outcome that doesn't make you feel all that good inside. And so gratitude, as I teach it in Beyond Intention, is connecting to the frequency that you opted into with your intention, and doing so in the now, knowing that by doing so in a space of gratitude, you quite literally call that experience into your reality. And then it's just a matter of your belief systems about the how and the when. But it's done. It is done. The second that you connect it to it and stand energetically in that frequency, it's yours. The only thing standing between you and it is you and the stories that you have about the how and the when.
So let's talk about that form of gratitude. I mean, earlier you were talking about the gratitude for, oh, this great stuff is coming, I'm going to be grateful for it. Now you're talking about putting the gratitude before the horse.
Yeah, basically.
Putting the gratitude out there first. Talk about that. How do you develop that skill, though? How do you do that? For many people, especially when they're starting out with this, that's not possible. You can't really do that. And then you start to buy into the idea that it's possible, but then, oh, geez, it's a lot of work. How do I always remember to do that? How do I do it when I'm not feeling it? I got to get there, but I don't know how to get there. All that kind of stuff.
So I would say, this is what I would say about it. It's not so much about trying to develop a skill. It's about losing your disconnection to an eternal truth that everything is here and now. When we're trying to connect to something as a future possibility, we're separating ourselves from it. We're buying into the illusion of separation, and we're buying into the illusion of time. When we let go of the illusion of time, we come back to the truth that everything just is here in the now. All potentials, all possibilities are here in the present moment. And so I don't have to develop a skill. I just need to reconnect to that truth and start to develop an understanding, or re-know an understanding, that the outcome that I desire already exists, not as a possibility, but as a now thing, as a now event, a now experience, separated only by my stories of separation. And I can be grateful for it as a quantum potential. We can call that quantum potential, as a quantum possibility. And my gratitude for it is the highest, most powerful, strongest magnet to that experience. Because what I'm saying is, I'm so certain of my connection to it that I'm grateful for that quantum potential here and now as a finished idea, as a finished experience. And doing that consistently strengthens my connection to it. It dissolves the separation story and then brings the opportunity to experience it into my timeline.
So playing a little devil's advocate and imagining what some listeners are saying, well, all that sounds great, but what if I just don't believe that? I mean, I just don't really think that's true. I mean, there's a part of it, I know I'm making up this story. It's not a real story.
Here are two things on that. Number one, your stories make your reality. So if that's your story and that's your reality, then you've just separated yourself from the beautiful ability to connect to something.
Yeah, that's true.
This isn't for you. Keep enjoying being broke, keep enjoying being sick, and keep enjoying being lonely. That's what you've chosen by commitment to that story. Right? And
that's the hard reality answer is what that is.
That's just what it is. Your story has just separated you from tapping into that. You cut yourself off from the divine. You cut yourself off from God. The other thing is, for those that do believe it, but they just aren't able to translate into it, this is where microshifts come in. We don't go in and connect to $1 million in the bank with the lover of our dreams and perfect health. We step into experiencing sufficient evidence of this on a micro level and building a compound effect wherein the story of separation has to dissolve because the mind no longer has the evidence to support it. The mind only holds stories that it has evidence to support. It doesn't lie. By consistently giving it evidence in microshifts, small doses, connecting to things that are just outside of where we are, pushing our edge and not our buttons, we create a reality for ourselves wherein we can actually start to connect to infinite possibilities on a grander scale. So don't go for the person of your dreams. Go for getting a text from someone that you actually like. Go to having a nice first date. Go to meeting someone that's not a douchebag, right?
Yeah.
Go to having a pleasant connection with someone next time you go to a party or go to the park or in your book club. Like, start with that. Find something that's just outside where you are. Push your edge and not your buttons. The second that you feel resistance to the idea, you've gone too far. Pull it back and find a baby step that's closer to where you are. Do that consistently and the story has to fall away. The story of separation, the story of not being quantumly connected to this outcome will fall away the second that you start micro-shifting to giving yourself sufficient evidence to support that new narrative. And when that narrative is yours, then that truth is yours, and then that quantum potential is yours also.
I'm curious. I think I know what the answer is here, but I'll ask it anyway because it's out of my experience. When I was back before I was married, before I met my wife, I was the most unsuccessful dater in world history. I had a 20-year streak of absolute 100% total failure. My longest relationship before I met my wife was 3 weeks, excuse me. And that was the longest one. The shortest ones lasted minutes. And ultimately, and I've told this story before, ultimately what happened is I threw in the towel. I said, I'm done. I can't handle this anymore. This is just too painful. The last one that I was in before I met Louise was absolutely horrific. I mean, if there was anything that could have gone wrong, it did. It was just really, really bad. And I said, I'm through with this stuff. I can't handle this anymore. I mean, if it means I'm going to be single the rest of my life, then I guess I'm going to be single because this is just too painful. And so I threw in the towel. And a month later, I got a phone call from a mutual friend who said, hey, I have this friend of mine who's interested in meeting you. Can I give you her phone number? And my answer was, absolutely not. I'm done. I threw in the towel, Deborah. I am totally done here. Yeah. And fortunately, Deborah's a psychotherapist, so she kind of talked me down from the cliff. And basically, say, you just look at things a little bit differently. Think about it a little bit differently. Don't go into it like it has to be a relationship. Just meet somebody, and that's all you're doing is just meeting somebody. See if there's anything there. Don't turn it into a big deal. She just talked me into it. So I said, oh, all right. So against my better judgment, I took the phone number and put off making a phone call for 2 weeks. And I finally said to myself, well, yeah, I really did say I would call. So, okay, I gave a call. And the first day went well. First call went well, rather. It was about a 2-hour call. And so I said, well, I'll give you a call sometime next week. And so I called her a week later, and that was another 2-hour call. Another week later, another 2-hour call. And then we had our meeting for the first time, and it was an absolute disaster. Because I still believed deep down it was going to be a disaster, but now I just didn't care.
No, you're committed and detached at the same time.
I was, yes. Actually, what was really happening was I was disconnecting from the idea that I can't meet the right person. That every person I meet, that every woman that I meet was going to be a disaster before I even met her. That was the thing. I didn't know it at the time, but that's what was going on in my head. I literally had come to believe that any woman I would ever be interested in could never be interested in me. Which is a hell of a thing. No wonder it was 20 years, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But because I was letting go of that, it was a micro shifting process. It was actually micro shifting fairly quickly, but it was a micro shifting process. And so by the time we completed our first date, which was a disaster, the timing of it was perfect, because that same day, my friend Deborah, the one who introduced us, the mutual friend, had a party that day, because her birthday, my birthday, and another person's birthday were all within like 3 days of each other. So we're having this group birthday party.
Nice.
So I went to the group birthday party. She says, well, how'd the date go? And I said, oh, it was a disaster. And I told her how bad of a disaster it was. And she says, well, you're going to give it the 3-date rule, right? And I said, the what? She said, the 3-date rule. I said, what's the 3-date rule? She says, that's where you give it 3 dates before you make a decision. I said, oh, God, no, do I really have to? Wow. But I did give it a second date, and the second date went much better. And I gave it a third date, and the third date went even better than that. And within a month, we were together. Oh. Now, I tell that story. I've told it in the past, and I tell it here because what I'm trying to illustrate is I had built up a tremendously powerful story about how I could not possibly find somebody. I had to literally let go of that story before anything else could happen. And even then, it was still a painful process, but at least I was letting go of that old story. I didn't know it at the time. Daniel, that's the most important part. I didn't understand what I was doing. I had no clue. But what I was doing was letting go of that stuff. So my point is, sometimes it's just about letting go of that thing you don't like.
Yes. That's it. Just dropping it. Not making up a story, not trying to understand where it came from, not dissecting which of your past lives it originated in, just letting it go.
Yeah. And it's amazing how fast it happened after that. I mean, literally 2 months after I threw in the towel, I was a step away from being engaged to be married. It was crazy. I didn't actually ask her till about 9 months later. I mean, I'd been through enough. I wanted to actually give it time and feel like, okay, this is actually going to work, you know. But yeah, and actually it was 21 years ago tomorrow that I asked her, and she said yes.
Wow. So we've got an anniversary tomorrow.
We have an anniversary, yeah.
Oh, I want to make a note of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, where does gratitude fit into that? Because I was actually making a point where gratitude fits in. And at the time, if you had asked me, was I feeling grateful? I couldn't have answered that one yes. But looking back on it, I think I was, in kind of a weird way. Seriously. Because I was grateful for the fact that I'd thrown in the towel. Yeah. There was an immense feeling of relief from that. So while I might not have expressed it that way, I was actually expressing gratitude about feeling better about not having to get all torn up by all these terrible relationships.
And you know, there's a couple of levels to that I think would really be great for the audience to be able to hear today and really, really speak to your experience. You drop the importance. That overimportance throws off our frequency. So in Beyond Intention, gratitude is about being in the frequency of the thing. Yeah. So first of all, we step into acceptance, which is complete acceptance of our creative power. Then we wipe the deck clean with step 2. We create a blank slate. And then on that blank slate in step 3, we step the emotional state that we want to be in. We set our frequency. But when we have overimportance, it throws off our frequency. And I spoke about that in the masterclass, I think it was today. And that was this idea that when we have overimportance, which is normally driven by fear or driven by excitement, overimportance or underimportance, whatever, it puts us in a different frequency. So the frequency that we've decided in this model puts us on a track that we've cognitively connected to as an outcome that we're going to experience. But when importance throws off our frequency, we're no longer on that track. And so we can't have the experience that we've chosen because we're no longer on that trajectory anymore. We're on one that's been distorted by the overimportance.
Mm.
When you drop the importance, you basically gave yourself a clean slate.
Yeah,
Clean slate that left you open up to different possibilities. And of those possibilities, following a little talking off the ledge, you were able to start connecting to the possibility of, okay, well, I'm open now. I'm not shutting myself off. Doesn't necessarily throw you into it, but it definitely leaves you open to it. It's like when I'm working with people and they say, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. And I say, how do you know you couldn't possibly do it? Let's go with maybe it's possible. Right, maybe it's possible. Just by saying maybe it's possible, you're now open to the possibility. Maybe not jumping at it, but you're open to it. And now things can start coming to you versus, nope, that can never happen to me. I'm white, I'm black, I'm from this part of the world, Trump's the president, I'm tall, I'm short. It doesn't matter. The second that we lose that story, we're now open to be able to witness the experience. And gratitude is just connecting to that outcome, to that emotional state before the experience that we cognitively associate with it.
And how ironic that when I was in that state, and this is going to be true, I think, for anybody who's in a state similar to that, if somebody were to say to me, well, I've just opened myself up to a possibility, my immediate reaction would have been, no, I haven't. I know I haven't. I just threw this thing out the window. I mean, literally, when you're in that place, you don't think of yourself as having given up on the thing that you need to give up on. You don't think about it that way. And somebody points out to you that you've just improved your position. You might buy into it a little bit. Well, yeah, I'm no longer feeling extreme agony, so I guess that's improvement.
But it's just the attention. Like I think we're speaking about this on Tuesday, where we place the attention, right?
Yeah.
Just placing your intention on the positive side of it and not the lack of agony, but just focusing on the state that's there now without the agony. What's there? Yeah. Okay, well, I feel pretty neutral. Neutral's a bloody improvement. Celebrate it.
Over that one, yes, it was. I wasn't even feeling. I was feeling only less bad. I wasn't feeling. I wasn't feeling neutral yet.
and if that's better than where you were before,
it was.
Celebrate that growth. And
it was better.
Anchor it in, and that's what's going to get the momentum going in the right direction.
Yeah.
In the chosen direction, should I say?
The crazy thing is when you truly do let go, which is what I did. I let go in every way. I let go in belief that it would ever happen. I let go in hope that it would ever happen. I let go of everything. I mean, I just was done with it. And the only thing I was interested in was not feeling the pain anymore. The concept of actually being in a successful relationship was so foreign.
Your face was screwed up.
Oh God, it was a mess. Well, Daniel, 20 years of rejection after rejection will do that to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this also kind of ties into what you mentioned before about, I don't remember how you said it, but the gist of it was looking for somebody who gives you a nice text message or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, the way it turned out for me was I worked on simply relating to other people a little bit better. And I did that not because somebody had taught me to do that, but just because I just needed somebody to treat me a little bit better. I mean, there was no pre-planning about some future event here. It was just I needed somebody to treat me better. And it wasn't until much later that I realized that by treating myself so badly, because that's really what I had been doing. I had been treating myself really badly. I had been basically telling myself I was unworthy. I was, that's not the way I thought of it, but that's essentially what it amounted to. The way I thought of it was just, well, no one's really going to be interested in me, but it amounted to the same thing.
But yeah, it's being so committed to the facts as they are. You're not prepared to open up the facts as they could be.
Yeah. It wasn't until I was able to find a way by accident to do that I was able to make the shift. And when I made that shift, that's the part that blew my mind, how quickly things changed after that. Quickly measured in months. When you deal with 20 years of failure and then you have a success in 3 months, you actually don't trust it. We experienced that about 2 months into the relationship. Louise was experiencing very much the same thing. Her experience had been different, but we both brought the same kind of stuff in. And about 2 months in, she was flipping out because everything was going so well, and she didn't believe it. She just didn't believe it. She told me literally, I need to have some space for a while. We need to be separate for a while. And I had no idea what that meant.
Mhm.
Like, for me, it was just reinforcement. Oh yeah, here's another one, crash and burn.
Here's another one. Here we go again.
Here we go again. But there was also a
I
piece of
mean,
me that didn't quite believe it. So I was able to say, okay, fine, and then go home and basically cry my cocoa for a bit. But
mhm.
she was just so blown away by how well things have been going that it scared the daylights out of her. So she had to actually call her friend up and tell her, like, I can't handle this. And her friend said, well, what's wrong with him? And she said, well, he's too tall. And she said, well, if that's the worst thing in the world, don't end it based on that.
Oh God, I think just tying this up together, because we're coming up on the hour now. So we can sometimes be so committed to the facts as they are, and the emotional payoff we get from that, even though it's disempowering, that we don't open ourselves up to have something else. And sometimes it's unworthiness, and sometimes it's a commitment to unhappiness, and sometimes it's just, trauma that has us looped in those behavioral patterns. But by just asking ourselves, is it possible? Can I find a maybe here? And just finding that little step in the right direction, or in the chosen direction, and then having another step and having another baby step, and just stacking those baby steps, we can actually get somewhere that serves us. We can actually get somewhere that makes us happy. We can actually get beyond those 3 dates, and then get beyond that cocoa event, and get beyond someone being too tall, and get to somewhere where we actually enjoy happiness, where we actually have love, or we actually have some abundance in our lives. And sometimes it's just a series of steps taken in the direction that allows us to get there.
This is going to be a good book. I mean, we're 2 episodes in, and already we've covered some really great stuff. I can't wait to see what the rest of the book is going to be like. So, Daniel, have a great week. I'll be talking to you next Tuesday. Hopefully, Alex will be able to join us back then. Thank you to our listeners as well, without whom we wouldn't have a show. And we'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.